Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into what has to be one of the absolute coolest architectural and cultural mashups in North American history. We're looking at 299 Queen Street West, right in downtown Toronto. Now, if you walk past this building, your first thought is probably, tradition, religion, maybe quiet, pious reflection. But for decades, this exact spot housed literally the loudest, wildest, and most groundbreaking punk rock television hub in the entire country. So it really begs the question, right? How exactly did a 1913 Gothic church headquarters become the wildest party in Canadian television? Like, how does a space built for printing Methodist texts suddenly morph into the launchpad for a guerrilla-style music TV revolution? A revolution that, by the way, birthed global stars and totally defined a generation. To figure this out, we need to quickly trace the building's structural eras. Here's the timeline. 1913, Methodist Church HQ. 1985, Chum Purchase. 1987, Broadcast Hub opens. And finally, 2006, the corporate takeover. Section 1, the Gothic Methodist origins. Okay, let's step back in time to the building's very quiet, very pious beginnings. So looking at the architecture, this building is a textbook example of Gothic revival, showcasing this absolutely stunning neo-Gothic terracotta facade. I mean, this place was definitely not built to be a backdrop for rock stars. It was designed to project spiritual weight, moral seriousness, and real religious authority. Those pointed arches and all that intricate detailing, they were literally meant to draw your eyes upward, right toward the heavens. Back in 1913, this 5-story structure was built by the architectural firm Burke, Horwood and White. Its whole purpose was to serve as the headquarters for the Methodist Church of Canada and its publishing arm, the Ryerson Press. Actually, fun little side note, this site replaced Beverly House, which was an 1812 estate owned by the prominent Bolton and Robinson families. But for decades, 299 Queen Street West was strictly a religious and publishing hub. It kept that super solemn vibe even after the Methodists joined the United Church in 1925. And honestly, that stunning architectural integrity is exactly why, in 1986, the City of Toronto stepped in and designated it a heritage property under the Ontario Heritage Act. The facade was officially protected. But, well, behind that gorgeous, protected neo-Gothic terracotta, things were about to get very, very loud. Section 2, a broadcast hub, is born. Because in the 1980s, that sacred, hushed atmosphere was about to get completely upended by rock and roll television.
Here's what happened. In 1985, family-owned Chum Limited officially swooped in and bought the building. They brought on Toronto's quadrangle architects to take this historic heritage property and just completely gut and revamp the interior. By the time it reopened in May of 1987, the quiet halls of the Ryerson Press were long gone, replaced by a totally innovative, hyper-modernized media complex.
And here is where it gets really brilliant. The architects and producers embraced this concept of studio-less broadcasting. Basically, no traditional TV studios were built. None. Instead, the entire building was wired for audio and video. Public spaces, stairwells, office desks, even the parking lot outside, they were all engineered to be optimal shooting locations. They turned the whole physical space into a living, breathing, guerrilla-style broadcast environment. It was incredible. To let the outside world know about this wild shift happening inside, they added something pretty unforgettable to the architecture. On the building's east wall, they mounted an actual news truck, first a City Pulse Live Eye, and later a CP24 breaking news truck. And they made it look like it was violently crashing right out of the building, with its front tires still spinning. Talk about a stark, almost comical visual contrast to that serious 1913 terracotta we were just talking about. Section 3, the nation's music station. So let's step into the creative peak of the 80s and 90s, when this Gothic church officially became an incubator for Canada's answer to MTV. I mean, just look at the iconic, groundbreaking programming that cooked up inside these unconventional walls. You had The New Music in 1979, hosted by Gene Beaker and J.D. Roberts. Then City Limits in 83, serving up these avant-garde late-night vibes. Toronto Rocks in 84 became the ultimate after-school video ritual. Then you've got Rhapsody in 1989, literally pioneering hip-hop television in Canada, plus the absolute chaos of breakfast television and live dance parties on Electric Circus. It was a totally wild lineup. The masterminds behind all of this? Moses Znaimer and John Martin.
Moses was the passionate, highly mercurial founder, known for this wild management style people called benign neglect. And he paired up perfectly with John Martin, a super resourceful British expat who brought that chaotic, guerrilla-style filming to city TV. Together, they built this incredible culture where fast, free-flowing information and pure resourcefulness completely trumped polished teleprompters.
Section 4. Street-level television. Because of Znaimer and Martin's vision, this specific building fostered an entirely unique relationship with the public. To really grasp this, let's compare MTV in New York with Much Music in Toronto. The physical setup basically tells the whole story. MTV, they were isolated up on the second floor in Times Square. The stars were virtually untouchable, hidden behind closed doors. But Much Music was right on the ground floor at Queen and John Streets, complete with giant open sliding glass partitions. If you were walking by, you could literally look inside, press your face against the glass, and half the time end up becoming part of the live broadcast. Former Much Music VJ Rick Campanelli really hit the nail on the head when he said, "The thing that brought us and the fans together was when they opened the doors of the studio. We weren't really speaking to young Canadians, we were speaking with young Canadians. That accessible, open architecture directly shaped the inclusive, community-driven culture of the channel." In this whole street-level ethos, it all culminated in the Much Music Video Awards, or the MMVAs. Once a year, the parking lot, the studio spaces, and even the rooftop of this former 1913 Methodist church would completely transform into a massive punk rock festival. They would literally shut down the entire intersection of Queen and John for this giant street party to celebrate music with the masses. It was legendary. Section 5. The corporate takeover. Now, as is usually the case in media history, eras eventually change. We've got to shift our focus to the sharp contrast of the building's eventual corporate consolidation. Let's walk through the steps of this era of consolidation. In 2003, Moses Znaimer leaves Chum. The very next year, in 2004, Chum buys and shuts down MTV Canada. Fast forward to 2006, and the massive Bell Globe Media acquires the property. And with that new ownership, the channel pivoted hard, moving away from original music content and shifting towards, well, endless reruns of shows like Futurama and The Simpsons. To give you a sense of that internal shift, Stephen Kersner, the guy who created the iconic character at the Sock, said, "The company all of a sudden had 6 vice presidents, and it became much more corporate." The unpredictable, mercurial passion of the Znaimer era was pretty much instantly replaced by a sanitized corporate structure that was, laser focused on the ledger side of the business. And the fallout was honestly pretty stark. We're talking rounds of layoffs and beloved VJs being let go. Specialty music channels were entirely cut. By 2019, actual music videos were reduced to just 1 single hour per week. But perhaps the most tragic part for pop culture historians? During the transition, physical mementos of the building's golden age, historic archives, awards, master tapes, were reportedly just cleared out of the libraries and chucked into dumpsters in the parking lot. Just gone. Now, there was an attempt at a revival. In 2021, Bell teamed up with TikTok for a Much Music relaunch aimed at Gen Z. But instead of taking over those sprawling, open-concept Gothic halls again, this new version operates out of a small, sectioned-off studio space in a former Chum gift shop up the street. The new VJs try to get passerby to engage through a window, but it's totally separated from the raw street energy that used to define the brand. So this really leaves us with a final provocative question. As Bell Media continues to redevelop this iconic 1913 Gothic building, and as filmmakers like Sean Menard sift through whatever tapes manage to survive those dumpsters for his documentary, we have to ask, will the true legacy of 299 Queen Street West survive this modern era of consolidation? Or will the wildest party in Canadian television just fade away into the archives? It's a pretty heady reminder of how fast, vibrant cultural history can be overwritten. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning into this explainer, and keep exploring.